after 100 kilometers, you can take them off.
Yeah, I wouldn't take them off, but certainly if I was to do one full track day with these tires, they would be better. Yeah.
Get ready for the next battle.
Hello and welcome everybody. Super excited today as finally we are going to be testing the new Nankang CRS tire on track. And which better track to do this than our home track circuit, the Francorchamps. And for this we are going to be driving our GT3 car, as for the moment it is the one car from our fleet available with the appropriate tire sizes. But worry not, for those of you with a GT4 RS or a GT3 RS, tire sizes for the CRS are going to be coming available quite soon. So let's get this baby started, let's get it out of the garage, and let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today.
Feeling so tall, I could give a high five to the pilot. Whoa, inbox full of contracts I signed with a stylist.
And while we're still here, let's talk about the tires themselves, and let's talk about the tire that we're going to be comparing them against. And this is the Cup 2, which is the OEM fitment from Porsche for the GT3. The Cup 2 tire has been so long out in the market, it doesn't really need a big introduction. It is a fantastic hybrid tire, which a lot of people out there call semi-slick, but I will put myself out there and say I do not consider this as a semi-slick tire, but more of a high-performance summer tire. The Michelin Cup 2 aims to be a fantastic hybrid tire. It aims to be fantastic on the road, it aims to be as good as it can on the racetrack, and this is exactly what it is doing. These three grooves here are aiming for water dissipation. This bigger part here on the exterior is aiming for as much lateral support as it can, although we have to say that the sidewalls are a little bit too soft for our liking. Especially when we are comparing the sidewalls of the Cup 2 against most, if not all, of the semi-slick tires out there, they are a bit on the soft side. Michelin is claiming high performance, track day by track day, with 40% more longevity than any other tire out there. So this is one of the things we're going to be checking today in our comparison. So now let's switch, grab a CRS tire and see what that is about. The new Nankang CRS tire. Already by looking at it, we can see a more purpose-oriented tire. We can see a more track-focused tire. The asymmetric design on the exterior side of the tire resembles that of the Pirelli Trofeo R quite a lot and indicates that Nankang surely has put some effort into threading that thin line between wet and dry finely. This is again verified when we're looking at these two big grooves on the inside of the tire, which are surely there for water dissipation. Looking at the CRS and comparing it at least to the AR1, we can say that this is clearly a step up towards driving in the wet. Finally, let's talk about sidewalls. Already yesterday when we were mounting these tires, we could feel that this is a much stiffer sidewall than that of the Cup 2, which indicates and makes you expect that during hard cornering, with a lot of lateral acceleration, this is going to be a much better supporting tire on track. The morning is moving on. We talked about the tires themselves. The weather is warming up, so what better time to go at the track and yet still talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. Let's go, I'm super excited. So what are we doing today? This is pretty much a standard 992 GT3 with the only modifications being brake pads, brake discs, fluids and alignment. So this is a very straightforward recipe with a normally high revving aspirated engine producing 510 horsepower, rear wheel steering and a lot of Porsche finesse throughout all these years of development. As for the simulation we're going to do today, we're going to start both sets with 3 laps of bedding procedure, warm-up let's say, and then we're going to do a small break to adjust the hot pressures and let the tires rest so they can drop those temperatures down. After that, we're going to drive each set for 10 consecutive laps, increasing the pace steadily, and of course, traffic allowing, we're going to try to set a best lap. All of this will of course be backed up by the use of a RaceLogic VBox system, so we're going to be gathering data from all the driving we do And then, depending on the findings, we're going to be discussing about the advantages, disadvantages, and the different characteristics of the tires altogether. Finally, we are on track. Let's start to put some temperature in those Michelin tires, get them all warmed up. Starting pressure was 2 bars, and that should give us a good number to drop the pressures when we go back out. We're gonna use the numbers from Michelin, the recommended tire pressures, and then we're gonna do the same for the Nankangs. Up the famous Horus. Horus, when warming up the tires, feels like a walk in the park. Overtaking is allowed only on the left, so we have to wait. That's a big new change here on track. This is actually the first time for this year on track for me.
Would you care to join my following? No, sir. I do not follow.
Exciting. We have just finished the warm-up session with the Michelins, and it is actually quite nice because it was not only a warm-up for them but also a warm-up for me, as this is the first time for this season that we're going back on track. We had to lower the tire pressures when we came out. We started with 2 bars and they ended up being 2.5, 2.6. So this is not exactly what Michelin recommends for the Porsche GT3, and so this is why we have brought them down. Now the next step is we let the tires rest for a little bit, bring those temperatures down, and then we will go out again for another 10 laps. Hot, stay tuned. You can feel the front tires now. They're starting to overheat. You can feel from the way that the ABS is kicking in. There we go, at the hard braking zones, that they're really not liking what is happening here. So now we have to be a little bit more careful with the braking. All in all, there is quite a lot of traffic, and I think this is our last lap. There is a new bump there, exit of Paul Frere, that wasn't there last year, or at least not in such an obvious and evident way. It destabilizes the car quite a lot. Again, plenty of traffic, but at least this was the fastest lap time we were able to record. And of course, this is not really representative because, I mean, the tires feel already a little bit fatigued. Okay, that was 10 laps. Now, let's cool down the car before we come back in. And what does cool down mean? Cool down means high gears, low revs, keep momentum, as little braking as possible, and do not be going 80 kilometers for God's sake. You want to be keeping that fresh air flowing through the radiators, flowing through your discs, around your tires as much as you can. So keep driving the good line, keep driving the proper racing line, except if you see that there is someone behind you and you need to open up the blind for them to go. Otherwise, keep optimizing your driving line. So like this, you have to do as little braking as possible. But when you can accelerate, do accelerate. Little small braking. This bump here is quite something, eh? Wow. Great, that was the end of the session. 10 laps on the Michelins. All fine. There was a lot of traffic out there. The feeling of the Michelins, we know, quite linear. You know what to expect. You lean on the car and the car is quite progressive. You could feel after lap 7 or so, you could feel that the fronts were not really up to the task for the amount of brake performance we had. So we really had to modulate on the brake to not activate and engage that ABS as much as it was on the previous laps. So now it's time to go back to the workshop, switch the wheels to the ones with the CRS, and do exactly the same. I'm really excited, I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too at work. We just came back from the track after finishing the first stint with the Michelin tires. They perform pretty much like you would expect a Michelin to perform. Very good performance throughout the whole session. And as we were closing into the 10th lap, after lap 7 or so, you could feel that the tires were starting to drop a little bit in performance as they were starting to overheat. Especially in the hard braking zones, you could feel a lot more ABS activation, which meant that we really had to be a bit more sensitive with the way that we were applying the brake before we engage that ABS. For the rest, everything great. I don't think the lap time is really representative as there was a lot of traffic. I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, when we put all the data gathered from the V-Box onto the computer, we are going to be able to find a very good lap time somewhere here and there in between all the laps that we have done. Unfortunately, we couldn't nail that one lap in one go. Again, it was a bit busy, but this is what it is, and this is how we're going to go on. Now, for the next step, Maverick behind us, yes, Maverick is his name, it was a cool name, it's his actual name. Maverick behind us is finishing torque wrenching the wheels with CRS tires. And for the next step, we're going to go back to the track, do the 3 laps warm up, bed in a little bit, bring them up to temperature, let them rest, remove any pressure that we're going to build. We aim to have around 2 bars hot. This is where I would like us to start for today. And then maybe later on when we finish our complete simulation, maybe we're going to test a little bit up or down with the tire pressures to see which one we like best. Maverick? All good? We are ready? We are ready? Let's go do this. Okay, that was it. We just finished fueling up. So, full tank. We want the cars to be as identical as before in terms of performance. So let's go. Now, back in the car. Time for the CRS tire. 1 hour to go still until the end of the track day. Plenty of time. Let's go do our laps with the CRS. The track will start dropping the temperature a little bit, but at the same time it's going to be less busy. It's a good thing so we can focus on our driving. Let's warm up the tires a little bit. It's always so interesting to see what's happening on track. Different egos, different lines, different cars, same cars. have just finished testing the CRS tires. Let's recap some of the thoughts. First of all, for those of you who are here for the lap times, yes, the Nankang tire was 2 seconds faster, but both of the best lap times with the Michelin and with the Nankang were both with traffic. So this is not exactly the metric that we should go with. Although when we later go and analyze the data from the V-Box, I'm pretty sure that here and there we will be able to mix and match the best lap time out of all the laps. Okay, now let's talk about the feeling of the Michelin. Michelin more linear, Michelin more progressive. You can lean onto the tire a little bit more and you start feeling it when it starts to go, yeah? You don't feel so much support inside the corner, and this is something you feel a lot with the CRS. This is where the biggest of the difference is for me, and also in the overall amounts of grip. You can feel that the CRS tire is a little bit more grippy, and you can feel that in mid-corner, you can actually lean onto the car, and it is giving a lot more support than what the Michelin does, and that makes actually our setup now look a little bit too mild. So I'm pretty sure that when we dismount the tires after and we have a look at them and examine them, we're going to see that the car now could take a little bit more camber, and you can feel this. With a little bit more camber, especially in the front, the car would benefit a lot from corner entry, all the mid-entry part, and then you can put your foot down a little bit earlier at the exit phase. Now, also, I was able to feel higher mid-corner speeds, but again, this is going to be supported by the data we have from the V-Box and see if my feeling is right or not. So now, I think it's about time that we stop talking about feeling. Let's go back to the workshop, have a look at the tires, explain whatever it is that we find, and also have a look at the data. Finally, end of the day, we're back at the workshop. Feeling can be quite tricky sometimes. And although I want to say for me in my head is quite clear, I can understand why some people might have different opinions. But let's look at the hard evidence first and leave the feeling for later. Let's have a look at the two tires. Here we have the Nankang, here we have the Michelin. The Michelin has done 100 kilometers on track. The Nankang has done 130 kilometers on track because we had a red flag and we had to stop during our hot stint and restart again. So this actually has done a little bit more than this. When we are looking at the Michelin, we can see that the Michelin has actually taken quite a lot of beating in this middle part here, which is quite narrow, and it looks like, I will take a wild guess here and say that it cannot dissipate heat quite efficiently because of its width. But we can see a fine line here which has been, this is the front left tire by the way, which has been worn out, yeah? And we can also see on the sides here a lot of wear and a lot of scrubbing. This shows that the car has put a lot of load on the tire, and as the tire's sidewall is quite, let's say, soft, then this is starting to shave the tire here more. Now, compare it to the CRS tire. The CRS tire, clearly we can see none of the same usage marks. We cannot see the same usage on the exterior, and definitely we cannot see anything here on the middle part. This is also the front left tire. We can look all of the wheel around and we will not see anything like this. Remember, we did a simulation of 10 laps. 10 laps is not ideal. 10 laps around Spa is quite a lot because we have a 7-kilometer long lap and 10 laps is consecutively 70 kilometers long. Usually when I'm driving on a track day, around 6th lap or 7th lap, I'm stopping, I'm cooling down the tire and I'm bringing it back to the pits. But for the sake of the simulation and exactly for this reason, we wanted to do a longer stint to see how both tires react and how both tires manage a little bit of more heat into them. Both of the tires around lap number 7 started to give a little bit more ABS activation, like I said before on the racetrack, And of course, that meant that you have to dial back a little bit your braking zones and try to modulate your brake pressure a little bit more. If at the end of the day, we were continuing to drive with the same pace that we did, this tire would very much be destroyed. Where this looks to be, the longevity of this tire looks to be much better, and it looks like it hasn't really taken a beating from my driving style. Now, if anything, what this shows to me is that maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. If we were always using this tire, we would need to go back to the drawing board and even dare say that we need to add a little bit more camber, as it looks like for the moment the camber on the car is not using the tire optimally. So maybe this is a good excuse for us to go back to the drawing board, change the alignment of the car, and hit the track again with this tire and see how better it can perform. Now, lap times. In terms of lap times, as I said back at the track, we didn't have a chance to have a clean lap for any of these two, but looking very quickly at the data, we saw the ideal lap times, if that is worth anything. This is 1.5 seconds faster than this. And of course, we're going to have you looking at the data with us now. For those of you who don't know what you're looking at, this is the native software from Race Logic called Circuit Tools, and this here red box is the CRS lap, where this blue box here is the Michelin lap. And below we can see the different graphs for the data channels that we can select from this big list here. On the upper top left part, we can see the laps, the lap times themselves, sector times, and based on the coloring, this pretty much tells us which was fast, and purple stands for the fastest. You can of course expect that the fastest sectors you have done might be on different lap times. So basically what the software does, apart from telling you here the fastest lap time that you have done, is putting all those purple parts together and offering you an ideal lap time. And even though the ideal lap time for the CRS is at 235.2 and for the Michelin is at 236.4, which already is a difference of 1.2 seconds towards the CRS, we really feel that this is not really representative and that there is more time difference between the Nankang and the Michelin fuses than this. What is really interesting and is really good to see here is that our feeling that the Nankang tire was much more stickier is the difference in lateral cornering, and this is 2.1 maximum as opposed to 1.7 towards the left, and here we can see 1.8 as opposed to 1.5 to the right when cornering from one side to the other, which pretty much is a 0.3 and a 0.4 G difference in between the two tires. And as we looked at these, of course, high values, which someone can argue that these are not sustainable and that they are just instantaneous, then we went ahead to export all the laps that were clean into an Excel file, which we're going to look at together now, and see that this pattern actually stands for many more laps, many more corners, and it is a real thing, yeah? Looking at this Excel file here, we can see we did a comparison from different laps because not every corner was clean at the same lap. So what we did was go through all the laps and we found a clean path based on each lap that we had. So what we did was to extract that and to put it here and to look at things that, okay, these were not going to, these are more deeper parts that were done for my curiosity alone. But what I would like you to focus on here is the pattern that we discussed about the lateral acceleration between the two tires. And you can see that most of the corners, if not all, and I will explain why, the CRS is producing a higher lateral acceleration than the Michelin tire. And I said that most because in some of those here, it was actually an alteration to the line because of the traffic that didn't allow to the tire to really push to the limit. And this is the only reason why in some cases the Nankang tire has a lower value than the Michelin. And for the rest, you can see the same difference all the time, 0.2, 0.4,
0 here. It was traffic. Here we can see 0.2. So this 0.4. So this is always the same. This is a repetitive thing from corner to corner, and it's not just done to one corner one time, or is a maximal value that happened only once, and it could be considered to be, let's say, a glitch or a movement on the V-box which shouldn't be there.
So after one full day with the Michelin Cup 2 and the new Nankang CRS, it's time for a verdict. Is there place for both tires in the market? Absolutely yes. I can see where the Michelin would fit better. I would say a more beginner driver, as it gives a little bit more notice close to the limit, whereas I can also see how a more advanced driver could benefit from the more grip that you get with the CRS. Me personally, I would go for the Nankang just because I was able to feel a little bit more grip than the Michelin, and definitely more support from the stiffer sidewalls, and in the end, from lap number 7 to lap number 10, I could feel more longevity from the Nankang. Then, after we saw the evidence and we examined both tires, also longevity. I would much prefer having a tire that looks like the Nankang does after the same amount, almost the same, is actually a bit more than the Michelin. For me personally, I would definitely go for the Nankang. Although, again, I say that there's definitely place for both tires in the market. If you're spending more time on the road, maybe the Michelin is better. If you're spending more time on the racetrack and you're looking for ultimate performance, then maybe the CRS is for you. For us, the clear winner from today is the CRS, for the reason we just explained, and we're definitely going to be fitting it on our cars from now on. We already were big supporters of the AR1 tire, and with the CRS, now we clearly can say that it's heading the right direction, that it's definitely the step up and the improvement that the AR1 needed. And we are actually looking forward to driving this also in the wet to see how all these new asymmetric grooves and bigger grooves in the center perform. So hopefully we get also a wet day at one point, and we might be able to report back with some more videos. So guys, that was it. Looking forward to hearing back from you if you have similar experiences, looking back to your comments. I hope you found this video useful. If you like the video, then hit the like button, hit subscribe in the YouTube channel. Hopefully we will be able to produce some more content, and maybe even after we revise a little bit the alignment for this car. What do you say if you want to see another comparison, maybe with the Michelin Cup 2R? Maybe with the GT3 RS when the dimension for the CRS becomes available, because I think a lot of you already are thinking, yeah, but you did the comparison with the Cup 2 and not the Cup 2R, and the CRS is a little bit more sticky. All of this, which is fair thoughts, and I'm really interested to hear what you say. I'm really interested to hear if you would like to see a review with the GT4 RS, with the GT3 RS, or again with this car with the Cup 2R. Let us know, and we definitely do what we can to keep you happy, us curious, and the motorsport community a little bit better.